The Atlanta Braves avoid being swept, winning Game 3 4-3 to cement an 8-5 season series against the New York Mets. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. Jake Mastriani is celebrating his 10th wedding anniversary. He'll be out for a good part of this week. So he'll be back later on in the week to keep breaking down more of the season. But we are here to talk about Atlanta's 4-3 win. This now secures for the Braves an 8-5 season series win. So Atlanta's won 8 of the 13 games between these teams. We're going to get to the actual game, right? The offense, the clutch hitting of some of these guys. We're going to get to the bullpen working out of some stuff. Bryce Elder having a good start. But I just want to remind everybody, we talked about this, I think, last week. The Braves have now won the season series against the New York Mets for 8 consecutive seasons. It does not matter how good the New York Mets, how good of a season they're having. It does not matter how bad of a season the Atlanta Braves are having. We can be comfortable in knowing that the New York Mets are not and have not been better than the Atlanta Braves for a very long time. And that matters because there was way too many people in Truist Park today chanting let's go Mets. Way too much of that, but we can all admit the New York Mets are not better than the Atlanta Braves, and they have not been better than the Atlanta Braves in a single season since at least 2017. So there you go. Okay. Let's get to the actual game. 4-3 win by the Braves. And to me, I put this on social media when it happened. The big turning point was Sean Murphy. Okay. Not everybody likes when Sean Murphy gets into games right now because Drake Baldwin needs to play a lot to win Rookie of the Year. But this was a situation where Sean Murphy's starting today because, one, it's a lefty on the mound in David Peterson, and it's a day game after a night game. And the Braves have been very, very reluctant to run the same catcher out there in that situation. I believe Drake Baldwin's done it once this year, where he was the catcher for a day game after a night game. And Sean Murphy, who had one hit in the month of August coming into this series, picks up 2 hits from the number 8 spot in the order. First one's a single. And then in the 6th inning, this is really bottom of the 6th. This was the turning point here because Atlanta very quickly got to 2 outs. Marcell Ozuna walked, but Ronald had grounded out. And Ozzie, fielder's choice. So you're in a situation, you have Ozzie on first and 2 outs. Michael Harris singles. Nacho Alvarez walks to load the bases. And then Sean Murphy gets the clutch hit. And this is one of those things where the results and the decisions, like the results were good for a lot of stuff the Braves did in this game. Sean Murphy should not have swung at this pitch, right? We had just watched Nacho Alvarez walk on 5 pitches. None of them were in the strike zone. One of them was a bad call on a curveball outside. Sean Murphy takes 2 balls low, and then he swings on an 0-2 pitch that's off the plate away, and luckily just kind of shoots it out to right field to Juan Soto, and both Ozzie and Michael Harris score. Really not a great decision by Sean Murphy, but it worked out. There's your clutch hit, ties the game at 2, and then Jurickson Profar in the 8th, again with the clutch hitting. This is something Ozzie Albies singles to open the inning. Michael Harris pop out, doesn't leave the infield. You hate that. Nacho Alvarez strikeout. Again, 2-out magic. Sean Murphy does draw that walk. 4 pitches. He doesn't swing in any of them. None of them are in the zone. Braves only drew 5 walks today, and it's the first time really all series they've been able to cash in some of these walks. But Sean Murphy walks, so runners on first and second. Vidal Brujan wears one. Thank you for your service, Vidal Brujan, wearing a slider. And then Jurickson Profar gets that ball to center field. Cedric Bowens kind of misplays it a little bit. 2 more runs score. So 8 total hits for the Braves. And it didn't feel like they were doing a great job of taking advantage of their opportunities. But they cashed in enough. Like, they go 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position. All of their runs batted in. All of their runs were scored with 2 outs. And as much as we've complained about this team early in the season not hitting in those clutch situations and not being able to extend innings and make pitchers pay for the mistakes like the walks, we saw in this game the Braves be able to do that. Sean Murphy made him pay. Jurickson Profar made him pay. Braves come out of this with the victory. Here's the thing that I don't think we have all kind of internalized about this game. And if you've already realized this, I apologize. The Braves won today's game without a single extra base hit. They had 8 hits in this game. None of them were for extra bases. Every single hit today was a single. And it's truly a sign of how much this team has changed when you can think about the fact that the Braves won this baseball game without getting a single extra base hit. Because for so long, the last couple seasons for this team, they have won or lost based on being able to hit home runs. And we've seen things like last year. We've seen earlier this season when they're not able to get those home runs, they've struggled to score runs. And I'm not saying this is entirely him, but some of what Tim Hires wants to do is what you're seeing now. They're able to shoot the ball the other way and keep the inning going. They're drawing walks. They're putting pressure on opposing pitchers, opposing defenses to make plays. And this is absolutely working here. And I wonder if we had seen this offense all year, right? The offense that could win a baseball game if they did not get an extra base hit, did not hit any homers, and you didn't have all these pitching injuries. Where is this team right now? And it does make me feel a little bit better about the fact that you have a good part of this core coming back when you can see that it was not a good day for the offense, right? Again, no extra base hits, not great contact, but the approaches were good. They drew the walks and they won a baseball game, right? You feel a little bit better about that, and about the fact that they're figuring out how to make this happen when they're not playing their best. We talk a lot about pitchers, a pitcher who's not on being able to get through an outing and keep the team in the game. This was an offense that was not on today. And not only were they able to keep the team in the game by scoring enough runs, they scored enough runs to win when the pitching staff was really good. And whether we want to admit it or not, that pitching staff being really good started with Bryce Elder. We'll break that down next, right here on the Braves Postcast. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason's heating up. Cut day is like Tuesday. College football is not far behind. So whether you got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. The flex play option, total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. Because Prize Picks puts their members first, and all withdrawals, fast, safe, and secure. So download the Prize Pick app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. August 26th, Tuesday, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Braves Postcast. Lindsay Crosby going solo while Jake Mastriani is on vacation. A couple questions from the chat before we get on to some of the pitching stuff here. And one of them was from Southside 12. Lindsay, have a question. Matt Olson's dealing with some sort of injury. Do you think he needs a break? Reports over the weekend, he has like a minor toe issue. He's playing through it. His performance has not been great at the plate. I think we can all kind of admit that. But at the same time, when a guy has a streak the place that it is, right, where he leads baseball in number of starts, consecutive starts, as well as the fact that as much as they want to win, the only thing they're winning for is pride and momentum, right? They're not winning. The standings don't matter for the Atlanta Braves. They want to win, obviously. They're competitors. They're professionals. Because the fact that he's able to play through it, he has the streak, and the losses don't matter, I'm not going to be the one to go to Matt Olson and ask him to sit out. If the Braves were in a really close battle for a wild card spot, is that conversation probably different? Yes. Is that probably the right approach to take in a vacuum? Probably not. To say like, hey, you can't, we have to make a change here. And we're not going to make a change right now because the season's already over from a standings perspective. Here's the thing. With Austin Riley out, you don't really have any option for first base. I mean, your most frequently used backup first baseman in the last couple seasons has been Austin Riley. Matt Olson left some games early in 2021, I think, or 23, whatever it was. I'm sorry, not 21, 23. And Riley shifted over to first base. You don't really have a backup first baseman right now. Even the guy who on the roster who's played it some, in Vidal Brujan, he's also not here. Maybe you could move Jurickson Profar back to first, but you don't really have an option. And because the losses don't matter, let him keep the streak going. Let him play through it. If it gets worse, where it's obviously hindering him from a movement perspective, defense, and all of that stuff, then you could have a conversation. Okay, so Bryce Elder here. Very good outing for Bryce, and I think maybe something I wasn't necessarily expecting from him because he's had so many bad outings recently. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks to 6 strikeouts. And when you go back and you watch, he only really paid for 1 mistake. Every pitcher is going to make mistakes. Every pitcher is going to leave, going to hang pitches, throw the wrong pitch, put it in the wrong location, whatever. He really only pays for 1 mistake. Second inning, he walks Jeff McNeil to lead off, and not a mistake there. 8-pitch at bat. McNeil works it. He earns the walk, right? Not a cheap one here. And then 2 Mark Vientos, who's been red hot. He's down 3-1. And the 1 strike was not in the zone, but it was fouled off. It was a sinker inside. So he tries to come into the zone with a slider. But rather than leave it in the bottom third, he leaves it in the middle third of the zone. And Vientos pops it for a home run. Legitimate mistake. And, obviously he pays for that. Outside of that, Bryce Elder does really good in this game. And this is the frustrating thing about Bryce Elder. Because this guy, this version of Bryce Elder, you are perfectly fine with this guy as your 5th starter. 6 innings, 2 runs on 3 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Absolutely. There are a ton of teams who would kill to have that guy as their 5th starter. But the problem here is the start before this against the White Sox, he gave up 8 runs on 9 hits and 4 2/3. So I don't quite know what's going to happen here with Bryce Elder. It feels like the goal should be he's 8th or 9th on the pecking order for starts next year. Unless they trade him, he's going to be in the organization. Because he can put up innings, he has value, whether or not we appreciate that. And the question here is going to be what happens to him. Because he has too much talent, things like this, to just cut him. I know people have asked to just cut DFA Bryce Elder. They're not going to do that because when you see things like this, he obviously has talent. He just can't be consistent enough to be counted on. But they're going to get rid of some of these. You know, they're going to have to figure out something to do here with him. And then the rest of the bullpen kind of outside of him was not terrible. Pierce Johnson issued 2 walks, couldn't really find the zone, did get a strikeout. Dylan Lee got out of his thing. Tyler Kinley picks up the win, continues to look really good with Atlanta. Raisel Iglesias gives up a couple hits and a run, but ultimately does enough to get Atlanta out of it. There is a good question on here talking about the starting pitching real quick before we get out of here. From Sound FX09, should we start worried about the Braves prioritizing free agent scraps over prospects? You know, talking about Carlos Carrasco, who's been released, Eric Fetty, who's been released, and somebody else saying, I think J.R. Ritchie gets called up soon. I talked about this morning on social media. One of the issues Atlanta has right now is a 40-man roster that's not completely full. There's only 38 guys on that 40-man roster, but they have a lot of players on the 60-day IL that they're going to have to return to the 40-man roster of the year. And so the issue that Atlanta has is there's 38 on the 40-man roster. They have to add 6 players back in early November, right? Chris Sale probably coming back to make a start in the next week or so. AJ Smith-Shawver, Spencer Schwellenbach, Grant Holmes, Ronaldo Lopez, Joe Jimenez. So they need 6 spots. Right now they have 2. Free agency's giving you a couple, right? Raisel Iglesias, Marcell Ozuna, Kyle Quantrill. You're getting a couple there. You're probably going to non-tender Jared Kelenic. But every prospect, like a Hayden Harris, a J.R. Ritchie, whoever, that you add now before you're required to do it sometime in December for the Rule 5 protection deadline. Every prospect you add now means when you have to get the 40-man roster back to 40 guys after the season, you have to give up an additional player. And I'm not saying, like, you probably should be getting Hayden Harris in the majors, and you should be getting the information on whether or not he can be a valid bullpen piece for you next year. You need to see how he does against major league pitching. But it's very clear Atlanta's perspective, not mine, Atlanta's perspective is every single guy that you don't have to call up that you do right now, like a Hayden Harris, like a J.R. Ritchie. Every time you call one of those guys up now, then when you have to bring everybody off the 60-day IL in November, you have to give up somebody else. It's not just, do we give this inning to Pierce Johnson or do we give it to Hayden Harris? Do we call up Hayden Harris at the expense of losing somebody else in November? I personally think there's a couple guys like Hayden Harris you need to see how they would do. The organization obviously feels differently. They are prioritizing the depth and the options. I don't love it, but it makes sense. So again, 4-3 victory for the Braves. They do not get swept. They have still won the season series again because they are better than the Mets and have been better than the Mets for a decade now. And now they are on the road to Miami for 3 really interesting pitching matchups here. Spencer Strider versus Edward Cabrera, a fantastic strikeout artist who is trying to get back his form after injury, versus a very talented strikeout artist in Edward Cabrera, who has not shown his full potential because of injury. Tuesday is Hurston Waldrop versus Sandy Alcantara. Sandy Alcantara, a former Cy Young winner, trying to get back to form, versus Hurston Waldrop, a future Cy Young winner, who has looked fantastic. And Wednesday, Joey Wentz versus Ryan Gusto. So first 2 games, standard evening times. Game 3 is a day game. I will be back for a postcast for all 3. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves. In the meantime, Jake did pre-record some episodes for you guys. They're dropping the next couple of days. There's a Nick Allen episode in there, a couple episodes coming out. So make sure you subscribe to those. Also subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta. A lot of baseball, a lot of football content coming. Again, cut down day is on Tuesday. NFL season starts. College football season starts. Lots of games coming up. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta as well. Until next time, this has been the Braves Postcast.